Can you believe it? In 2025, the Philippines quietly surpassed a wave of nations once seen as global symbols of prosperity, countries like Ukraine, Cuba, El Salvador, and many others. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. And as you watch this video until the end, you'll uncover a journey so intense and inspiring that it might just change the way you see the world. For decades, the Philippines has been labeled as a developing country marked by poverty, instability, and chaos. That was the narrative. But everything has changed, not by luck, not overnight, but through millions of silent steps, quiet sacrifices, and an unshakable belief that never gave up. In 2025, we are no longer behind. The Philippines has risen above 10 countries that were once considered richer, more stable, and more powerful. While nations with long histories, advanced industries, and global influence begin to stall, we are moving forward. Today, Bizarre World Adventures invites you to discover the powerful story behind the Philippines' transformation. This is not just about statistics. This is about grit, hope, and the unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. This is the rise of the Philippines. 10. Ukraine. Once one of the strongest economies in Eastern Europe, Ukraine boasted fertile lands, a thriving heavy industry, and a strategic geopolitical location. After the fall of the Soviet Union, it had a real chance to rise as a regional powerhouse. But history doesn't always follow expectations. Since 2014, political unrest and war have shaken the nation. And in 2022, a full-scale invasion turned Ukraine from a country full of potential into one deeply scarred by destruction. Factories shut down. Cities crumbled. People fled their homes. Agriculture was disrupted. Foreign investments collapsed. And corruption, already deeply rooted, became an even greater barrier to recovery. Ukraine didn't fall because it lacked resources or talent. It fell because war severed its connection to the future. But while Ukraine was trapped in fire and smoke, another nation long considered an underdog in the global economy was quietly rising. The Philippines. No vast reserves of natural resources, no dominant heavy industry. But the Philippines possessed something even more powerful, a relentless spirit to rise. By embracing the digital era, expanding its service sectors, harnessing the strength of overseas remittances, and capitalizing on the remote work revolution, the Philippines ignited a new wave of growth. Filipinos didn't wait for miracles from the government. They took action, they adapted, and they pushed through every challenge, every crisis, with resilience and determination. 9. Serbia. If Ukraine was once the industrial center of Eastern Europe, then Serbia was the beating industrial heart of the Balkans. Back when it was part of Yugoslavia, Serbia thrived with a strong manufacturing base, a high-quality education system, and a workforce of engineers and skilled laborers respected across the region. Belgrade, the capital, was once hailed as the rising star of Southeast Europe. But time moved on, and the world changed. The Yugoslav wars devastated the Balkans. International sanctions, political divisions, and prolonged instability eroded the very foundations of growth. Though Serbia has been independent for years, it still struggles to regain its former strength. Reforms have been slow. Corruption clings to the government. And a wave of young talent continues to leave, chasing better opportunities across Europe, robbing the nation of the very people it needs to rebuild. Remittances from the Serbian diaspora help families survive, but like watering a tree with a trickle, it's not enough to grow a thriving forest. To be fair, Serbia is trying. It's moving closer to the European Union. It's working to revive its industries, improve infrastructure, and attract investment. But its path forward is blocked by a familiar enemy, bureaucracy, and stagnation. Meanwhile, the Filipinesa country, once seen as lagging far behind, has surged ahead. Untied from the weight of past glory, the Philippines dared to try something new. From the booming gig economy and rising tech startups to a vibrant, youthful workforce, the country quickly adapted to the digital age. It was this bold spirit, the courage to imagine, act, and transform that became the turning point. And then in 2025, a quiet yet powerful milestone was reached. The Philippines surpassed Serbia in GDP per capita. Once again, it's not the nation with the grandest past that leads the future, but the one brave enough to step out of its shadow and create a new destiny. 8. Paraguay. Tucked in the heart of South America, landlocked, quiet, and often out of the global spotlight, Paraguay was once seen as a stable nation with real growth potential. For years, it outperformed the Philippines in key economic indicators. With a strong agricultural sector and massive hydroelectric reserves, Paraguay held natural advantages many nations could only dream of. The Itaipu Damon of the world's largest hydroelectric plants should have been the driving force behind industrialization. But that transformation never happened. As the world shifted into the digital age, Paraguay fell behind. Its economy remained heavily reliant on agriculture and energy, leaving it vulnerable to global price swings. A large portion of the workforce operates in the informal sector. No contracts, no insurance, no taxes, draining the country's ability to generate public revenue and invest in vital sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Although Paraguay is now trying to build better logistics systems and improve infrastructure, progress has been held back by a lack of strong leadership and long-term vision. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, the Philippines, once considered the underdog, was quietly moving forward. No massive dams, no vast farmlands. But what the Philippines had was something Paraguay lacked: adaptability. The country exploded in the service sector, seized the rise of remote work, and empowered millions of overseas workers, not just to send money home, but to bring back knowledge, global experience, and an unstoppable drive for progress. The result? By 2025, the Philippines officially surpassed Paraguay, closing a gap that had lasted for decades. This story isn't about pointing fingers at those who've fallen behind. It's about honoring those who never stopped moving forward. Because in a world that's always changing, no one stays on top forever unless they evolve with the times. 7. Bolivia. Nestled between the majestic Andes Mountains and the vast Amazon rainforest, Bolivia is a nation blessed by nature. With an abundance of minerals, especially lithium, natural gas, and silver, Bolivia once seemed to be on the fast track to prosperity. The plan was simple: export resources, boost GDP, and ride the wave toward a wealthier future. But what happens when global commodity prices drop? What happens when an entire economy relies too heavily on things it cannot control? Bolivia began to stumble. Like a boat paddling with only one oar, the country lacked the balance it needed. Innovation was overlooked. Education lagged behind modern demands. The digital revolution was taken lightly. Political instability scared away investors, and when the resource boom faded, Bolivia was caught unprepared for what came next. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the Philippines, without any treasure beneath its soil, was quietly building value from something far more powerful: the minds, hands, and resilient spirit of its people. Remittances from overseas workers didn't just provide a steady flow of income, they connected the nation to the global economy. Small businesses flourished. The outsourcing industry became a powerhouse. And no matter where Filipinos were in the world, they never stopped thinking of home or giving back to it. In 2025, the Philippines officially surpassed Bolivia in GDP per capita. Not because Bolivia lacked resources, but because the Philippines had long-term vision, a spirit of innovation, and an unshakable belief in progress. Today, Bolivia is working hard to diversify, investing in tourism, renewable energy, and clean manufacturing. But the race has changed. Those who started earlier, moved faster, and dared to adapt have already pulled ahead. 6. Honduras. Honduras, a land of breathtaking beauty in the heart of Central America, where dense jungles, Caribbean coastlines, and ancient Maya heritage converge. Nature was generous, history offered rich roots, and the potential, it once seemed limitless. Yet somehow, Honduras failed to rise as the world had hoped. In 2025, a quiet but powerful shift occurred. The Philippines officially surpassed Honduras in GDP per capita. A country long burdened by natural disasters and underestimated by global standards had overtaken Honduras, seen as the more promising nation with stronger natural assets. Why? The answer goes beyond economics. It's about the power to build trust. In Honduras, political instability has become a chronic condition. Gang violence infiltrates neighborhoods. Citizens live in fear. Investors hesitate, and the government struggles to maintain consistent direction. Under such conditions, the economy leans heavily on small-scale agriculture and local manufacturing, insufficient to lift millions out of poverty. Remittances from migrants abroad remain a lifeline for many families, but they also signal something deeper, that opportunities at home are fading fast. Meanwhile, the Philippines quietly forged a different path. Through education, resilience, and an unrelenting drive to improve, Filipinos created opportunities where none existed. Technology, outsourcing, and the gig economy merged into a new, vibrant, and sustainable ecosystem. From customer service agents to remote developers, individual Filipinos became ambassadors of an extraordinary recovery. The Philippines didn't just surpass Honduras, it shattered the limitations others once placed upon it. Today, Honduras is working to rebuild trust, improve security, and grow its tourism industry. But the road ahead is long, and in a world that never stops moving forward, time waits for no one. 5. Nicaragua. Once dubbed the hidden gem of Central America, Nicaragua had all the ingredients to become a rising star. Fertile lands, stunning untouched landscapes, and a strategic location ideal for trade and tourism. For a time, many dreamed of a new era where Nicaragua would shine as a regional success story. But that future never arrived. By 2025, while the Philippines quietly surpassed Nicaragua in GDP per capita, this Central American nation remained trapped in the same old cycles: political division, ongoing protests, and a shattered sense of trust from the international community. Economic sanctions, internal conflict, and crackdowns on free speech have pushed Nicaragua further into isolation. Tourism, which could have been a golden ticket, has all but stalled, crippled by safety concerns and poor global marketing. The economy still leans heavily on traditional agriculture, with little innovation and minimal involvement in the global digital revolution. Meanwhile, the Philippines chose a different path. Rather than relying solely on natural blessings, it invested in its people. The rise of business process outsourcing, BPO hubs, wasn't by chance. It was the result of decades of focus on English proficiency, technology, and digital infrastructure. From small entrepreneurs and freelancers to overseas workers, millions of Filipinos became part of a powerful wave that moved the country forward despite every challenge along the way. The Philippines didn't win by luck. It won by daring to evolve while others were still waiting for the right moment. Today, Nicaragua is trying to bounce back, opening its doors to investors, rebuilding infrastructure, and seeking a place in the global economy. But in a world that moves fast, potential alone is never enough. Stability matters, action matters, and above all, vision matters. 4. Guatemala. A land of fiery volcanoes, the glorious Maya heritage, and once the strongest economy in Central America. A country with all the conditions to go far: ideal climate, fertile soil, and abundant agricultural resources. For a time, Guatemala was believed to be the economic bright spot of the region, but that vision was never fully realized. By 2025, something no one expected happened. The average income of the Philippines officially surpassed Guatemala's, a turning point that surprised the entire world. Guatemala's problem isn't a lack of resources. It's that most of those benefits don't reach the majority of the population. A small group holds power and wealth, while the vast majority struggle daily to make ends meet. When global prices for coffee and bananas, the country's key exports, plummeted, the entire economy of Guatemala wobbled in response. With weak infrastructure, uneven access to education, and an ever-widening wealth gap, the country became trapped in a vicious cycle. No matter how great the potential, when the people don't have real opportunities to break free, development remains a distant dream. The Philippines, on the other hand, chose a different path. Once considered less developed than Guatemala, the Philippines embarked on a journey of transformation from within. No abundant resources, but boundless ambition. No natural advantages, but sheer determination. As the world shifted to a digital economy, the Philippines not only kept up but rose to become a global services hub. A young English-speaking, skilled and resilient workforce became the country's unbeatable advantage. While Guatemala continues to work on improving infrastructure and governance, the Philippines has taken huge strides forward, not because of luck, but because it understood where it stood and relentlessly moved forward. Today, the gap between these two countries has reversed, not because Guatemala is weak, but because the Philippines is stronger. 3. El Salvador. A few years ago, El Salvador shocked the world by making an unprecedented move, declaring Bitcoin as the official currency of the nation. This was more than just an economic policy. It was a bold declaration of rebirth, a desire to break free from the outdated image of a country weighed down by crime and political instability. President Nayib Bukele, with his youthful and audacious image, has accomplished much. He reduced crime, built a modern image for El Salvador, boosted tourism, and invited investors with ambitious projects. But the world doesn't change simply due to one headline-grabbing move. Skepticism remains, as the scars from the past have yet to heal. Despite some progress, El Salvador has yet to break through. The economy is still heavily reliant on remittances and the export of simple goods. The use of the U.S. dollar helps control inflation, but it also ties the government's hands when it comes to adjusting domestic policies. While manufacturing and services have developed, they haven't gained enough momentum to propel the country forward as expected. Meanwhile, while El Salvador is still trying to prove itself, the Philippines quietly overtakes it. Not with attention-grabbing steps, but with steady persistence. The people of the Philippines are constantly learning, accepting remote work for global companies, building small businesses, sending money back to families, and investing in their future. There are no loud proclamations, but a quiet strength, and that is what makes the difference. Today, when comparing the two countries that once carried high expectations, the Philippines doesn't just lead, it has become a living example of the power of consistent, steady action with foresight. El Salvador may still be on its own journey, but the Philippines has found the right path, and they are running faster than ever. 2. Jamaica. The name evokes images of turquoise waves, soft white sands, and the reggae rhythm soaked in golden sunshine. A tourist paradise in the eyes of the world. But behind this vibrant postcard, there's a story. Few want to tell the story of an economy struggling to find a sustainable direction. Over-relying on tourism and mining, Jamaica is vulnerable to the big waves from the outside, global crises, natural disasters, or simply the off-season for tourism. When a storm hits, not only are the beaches disrupted, but the national budget also teeters. With public debt soaring, the dreams of modern infrastructure, better education, or industrialization remain unfinished symphonies that never get to play. The government wants reform, but the financial room for maneuver is too narrow. The people of Jamaica have potential, have passion, but lack the opportunities to break through. Meanwhile, the Philippines, a nation once considered less developed, quietly steps forward. Without the famous beaches of Jamaica, the Filipinos possess another kind of resource, a progressive mindset and the ability to adapt to the digital world. From small offices to modest rooms, millions of Filipinos are serving global customers, managing data, working remotely, and generating sustainable income. They don't wait for customers to come, they reach out to find new markets. Jamaica is trying to turn things around, expanding logistics, investing in education, and nurturing light manufacturing. But while they are still finding their way, the Philippines has already run far ahead. 1. Cuba. The island of history, revolution, and classic cars driving through the streets of Havana as if time has stopped. It's a place where one can still feel the nostalgic romantic beauty, from the famous cigar smoke to the salsa music echoing through narrow alleyways. But the world has changed and Cuba hasn't kept up. By 2025, the average income of Filipinos officially surpasses that of Cubans. Something that seemed impossible just a few decades ago, when Cuba was praised for its top-tier healthcare and impressive social development indicators within Latin America. But that former glory is not enough to sustain a nation in the new era. The tight economic controls, though meant to protect fairness, inadvertently stifled innovation. Tourism, an industry that once lit the path for the economy, has been unable to take off due to political barriers and international sanctions. With poor exports, limited access to global markets, and reform efforts moving too slowly, Cuba has become a symbol of resilience but also a testament to falling behind. Meanwhile, the Philippines didn't opt for nostalgia. The people of the Philippines didn't wait for opportunities to knock, they went out, they learned, and they boldly ventured forward. They work online from small cafes, send money home from distant cities, and start businesses with simple but daring ideas. The Philippines, once seen as the late bloomer of Asia, has now emerged as a new symbol of adaptability and breakthrough. They don't need a glamorous past, they just need a future to embrace. And so, quietly yet powerfully, the Philippines has surpassed not only Cuba, but a series of countries that once stood at higher ranks. From Eastern Europe to Central America, from South America to the Caribbean, 10 nations that were once praised are now watching the rise of a country that was once overlooked. The Philippines doesn't have abundant natural resources. It doesn't have a strategically privileged geographical location. But we have our people, our will, and an unwavering spirit. We turn challenges into opportunities. We transform remittances into a driving force. We leverage digital platforms as a springboard to soar. We don't wait for miracles. We create our own. And this is not the end. It is merely the beginning of a future that is stronger, more confident, and more deserving. The Philippines is ready, not just to keep up with the world, but to lead it. Mabuhay, Pilipinas!